What are my preseason SEC power rankings? Now, let me give you guys something up front. Let me just tell you this. The preseason SEC power rankings. How should they be put together? Here is how. They should not be a projection. They should be based on how you finished last season and who you have coming back this year at key positions. Period. End of story. Nothing else. They should not be based on anything else. With that said, preseason SEC power rankings should not involve what I think is going to happen. So, for instance, as I'm about to give you my preseason power rankings, Alabama, I told you guys I'm high on. I'm very high on Alabama because I believe Ty Simpson is the perfect fit for Kalen DeBoer's offense. I believe Jalen Milroe wasn't, so losing Jalen Milroe helps. However, that's all projections. That's all analysis. Power rankings should be straight up. How did Alabama finish the season, and who did they lose? Meaning they are going to be much lower in my preseason SEC power rankings than they will be in my actual projection for how they finish the season. So my hot or cold game is going to be this. Will the team that I name at where they are finish higher or lower than where I have them in my SEC power rankings at the end of the year? That's going to be hot or cold, brought to you by Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia, daily updates, facebook.com/sports treasures TN, facebook.com/sports treasures TN. We're going to go through all 16 teams now. Let's have a little fun. Let's get rolling. SEC power rankings to start the season. We kick things off with Mississippi State at number 16. Now, Mississippi State's fifth in the SEC in total returning starters with 245. I do believe Jeff Lebby will turn things around. However, given what they did last year, going 2-10, being easily the worst team in the SEC, they start the year at number 16. However, and this is clear, I'm hot on Mississippi State being better than last in the SEC this year. I think Mississippi State will be significantly better than last in the SEC. So with that with that in mind, I'm very hot on Mississippi State not finishing worst in the SEC. They went 0-8 in conference play. Number 15, Kentucky. This is a tough one for me. This is a really tough one for me. But I'm cold on Kentucky. I think they will either finish last or next to last in the SEC this year. I think they are getting exposed more to Mark Stoops, having to play not just with the no divisions conference schedule. I think there are many issues there, and I really do think they will get exposed the more they end up playing. So I'm sorry, I'm cold on Kentucky. Oklahoma, number 14. I'm cold on Oklahoma. They're going to be a bottom 3 team. They're going to be really bad. They'll either be 14 or worse. I'm kind of giving away who I think the bottom teams in the SEC are going to be, and I think Oklahoma will be there. I think things are going to come apart under Brent Venables. I think Jackson Arnold's issues last year were much more about Brent Venables and Oklahoma than they were anything else, and I think things come undone again this year, so I'm cold on Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma and Kentucky are 2 of the bottom 3 teams in the SEC. Arkansas, number 13. The reason they're at number 13 is and for the record, Oklahoma finished 4th from worst in the SEC. They're 3rd from worst in this. Arkansas finished 5th from worst in the SEC. 6th from worst. I'm sorry. They finished 11th in the SEC last year. I have them down at 13th because they lost a lot of key starters, which is what moved them down to 13. I'm cold on them too because I have trouble believing that Sam Pittman can keep the luck he had last year. I just think things are going to come apart again. So I'm cold on Arkansas. Now, let's move up. Vanderbilt at number 12. Vanderbilt finished 12th in the SEC last year. They were 7-6. Now they're at number 12, staying there because they have Diego Pavia back. It's hard to see them actually being a lot better, but I'm actually hot on them finishing better than 12th. I think they'll finish possibly in the top 10. I will name some of the teams who I think will finish below them. But yeah, no, I'm actually hot on Vanderbilt. But I'm on them being better than number 12. I think Clark Lee's a very good head coach. Diego Pavia being back does matter, despite what you think about his moxie and his talking. I'm high on them. Auburn at number 11. Now, this is going to be a hot take for some of you guys because Auburn finished last year 14th out of 16 teams in the SEC, and I've got them up at number 11. Why is that? Well, Auburn is third in the SEC in returning starters, 264 total starts. They're entering their third year under Hugh Freeze. The returning starters give them a big boost, plus the addition of Jackson Arnold. However, on my projections, I'm cold on Auburn because I think things are coming apart under Hugh Freeze, and I don't think he cares about winning anymore. So I'm cold on Auburn. Texas A&M at number 10. Now, a lot of people have Texas A&M in the top 25, ahead of Tennessee and things like that. I understand. Texas A&M finished 8th, tied for 8th in the SEC last year. I have them down at number 10 because they, again, it's not necessarily about them. It's about the teams that were ahead of them last year. And a couple of teams that they finished ahead of, honestly, had a stronger finish to the season last year. However, with their returning starters, it was a tough call. And I will say this, I'm hot on Texas A&M being better than 10th in the SEC before the year is all said and done. We're going to see how that goes. Missouri at number 9. Missouri finished 7th in the SEC last year. You could make an argument that they should be higher than 9th because Missouri leads the SEC in returning starters. But we all know Missouri wasn't the actual 7th best team in the SEC last year. They benefit from an easy schedule, the easiest SEC draw every year. That happened last year. So Missouri is at number 9 because of that. Am I hot on Missouri finishing better than number 9? Believe it or not, no. I'm cold on them. I think they will finish below Vanderbilt in my power rankings by the end of the year. I don't know if they'll finish below them in the overall standings. Number 8, Alabama. Now, many of you may ask why Alabama is so low. Alabama last year finished, for those who don't know, 5th in the SEC. They lost the second to last week to Oklahoma 24-3. Then they lost their bowl game to Michigan 19-13. So they had a terrible finish to the season. They also lose their quarterback. And they actually are near the bottom in returning starters at 191. Just that alone, just basic math and basic how they finish the season is why Alabama has to be down at number 8. However, I'm very hot on them finishing way higher than number 8 when the season is all said and done. Because I actually believe Ty Simpson will make them better. That's my projection, though. That can't be a power ranking. Power rankings are how you're doing at this moment. Ole Miss is number 7. Now, I get Ole Miss lost to Florida late last year. But they also beat Georgia before that, and then they beat Mississippi State and Duke to close out the year. They won 5 of their final 6 games under Lane Kiffin. And they returned, despite all the transfer portal talk, they're middle of the pack in returning starters. They are 9th in the SEC returning starters. That's what puts them ahead of Alabama, the finish of the season with an actual bowl win and more returning starters. However, I have to point this out. I am actually cold on Ole Miss finishing number 7 in the SEC, and that is because I think that Alabama will be better than them, and I think Texas A&M will be better than them too. So I'm cold on Ole Miss finishing that high. The only thing that might help them are a couple of teams ahead of them, and we're going to get to those next. Tennessee, number 6. Tennessee had a bad finish to the season, losing to Ohio State 42-17, but then again, Ohio State went and won the national title. Tennessee then lost a ton of talent, which includes Nico Iamaleava, and they are last in the SEC in returning starters this year. That's why they're down at number 6. People might ask why they're not lower. Well, number 6 is low enough for a team that was one of the top 3 teams in the SEC last year to make the college football playoff. But I'm hot on them finishing higher than 6 because I got a couple teams ahead of them that are going to be worse. LSU at number 5. LSU finished 9-4. And they won their final 3 games. And they are 4th in the league in returning starters. With that on paper, they should be much, much better this year. And actually, I'm hot on LSU being better than 5th. Everybody's going to accuse me of being the LSU fan. I get it. But I finally believe Brian Kelly's team is going to turn a corner. So LSU at number 5, I'm hot on them being better than that. Florida at number 4. Nobody had a stronger finish to the season than Florida. Florida beat LSU, then they beat Ole Miss, then they won their bowl game against Tulane, and also won at Florida State to finish the year 8-5 after being down at 4-5. And Billy Napier was all but fired, and they finished 8-5. And while they are 12th in returning starters with 195, they upgraded on a lot of talent on paper on the recruiting trail, and they returned DJ Lagway, their quarterback, which gives them more of an inflated value. That's why they're up at number 4. However, I'm cold on Florida, and the biggest reason I'm cold on Florida is because, and this is a huge one, I think the way they finished last year was overrated. They beat an LSU team that had quit on the season after losing to Alabama the week before, knowing that no college football playoff was in store for them. Then they beat an Ole Miss team that had expended all its energy beating Georgia and stopped caring after that. They beat them at home. Then they beat Florida State on the road. Florida State was horrible last year and already quit on the season 2 months earlier. And then they beat a group of 5 school in their bowl game. I genuinely think Florida is massively overrated, and I am cold on them. Hot or Cold brought to you by Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia, daily update, Sports Treasures /T. And we get to our top 3 teams next.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Number 3 in my SEC power rankings, and this is going to be the hottest take I have on the day, is Texas. Now, people will say, oh, but Texas had the best record in the regular season last year in the SEC, and they're the number 1 team in the nation this year, and they ain't been in the coaches poll. You gotta love Texas. The SEC rated the regular season schedule for Texas. They gave them the easiest schedule possible in the SEC last year, and the same is true this year. More importantly, Texas, what did they do against the actual quality opponents they played last year? They beat Michigan, who turned out to not be good. They beat Oklahoma, who turned out to not be good. They beat Vanderbilt. Oh my gosh, they beat Vanderbilt, and they beat Texas A&M. But they played Georgia twice. Lost both times. One time when Georgia had their backup quarterback in. They beat a Clemson team that had no business getting into the college football playoff, and they had to cheat to beat Arizona State in double overtime. So their record is massively inflated at 13-3 last year. And on top of that, they lost their quarterback. So yeah, I got them down at number 3 in the SEC, while everybody else is going to have number 1. They start the year in my SEC power rankings ranked number 3. More importantly, my projections. Okay, I'm hot on them because while I don't believe in Steve Sarkisian, I believe in Arch Manning, and I think Arch Manning will develop well and be a very good quarterback. I am projecting a lot of success for Arch Manning, so I'm hot on Texas, particularly because number 2, and this is one of my other really, really hot takes. Number 2 is South Carolina. They finished last year 9-4. I get it. And yes, they did lose their bowl game to Illinois, but the way they finished the regular season so strong, beating Clemson on the road, beating Missouri, beating Texas A&M, winning at Vanderbilt and at Oklahoma, winning their final 6 games. Lenora Sellers was the best player in the SEC to finish the season. And I have to weight the fact that you're playing a bowl game at the end of the year. And with Lenora Sellers back and how strong South Carolina finished the season, yeah, no, they're number 2 in my SEC power rankings to start this year. However, I'm cold on them, guys. Come on, they're not going to finish second best team in the SEC. Not with Shane Beamer as head coach. That's not happening. And the number 1 team in my SEC power rankings to start the year, Georgia. Georgia is still the best team in the SEC as of right now. They didn't, in my opinion, they might as well have gone as far as Texas had. I know Texas went to the semifinals, whereas Georgia went to the quarterfinals of the playoffs and lost with their backup quarterback, but they beat Texas with that backup quarterback. And I think you have to have Georgia ahead of Texas right now because of that. I have Georgia as my number 1 team in my SEC power rankings. Now, to be fair, I'm cold on Georgia finishing there because I don't think they're going to win the SEC.